Sorry, none of these look like basketball logos. I've never seen this in my life.
Damn, that look like where an axe murderer is keeping all this stuff in the closet.
Oh, the New York Yankees.
Insurance.
Buffaloes, right?
Somebody kill a moose.
This is the Brooklyn Bridge
yeah.
in a basketball.
Two question mark trying to make love.
I don't believe that that's a real one.
Pelicans.
No, look like.
It's a pelican.
No, it's not a pelican. You know what it is?
What is it?
I know what it is. That's an alien land in Coney Island.
Something out in the middle of the country.
Lionsgate basketball.
PD, Police Department.
Shazam!
Tigers, LSU Tigers.
Pennsylvania.
Phillies?
The Stallions.
The sunset of the moon had a baby.
The exploding field goal.
Honestly, the Hot Chili Peppers.
KFC.
Ant-Man's wife.
76.
76 and stars.
Yeah.
Mr. America captain, baseball team.
LA Ball?
Arr!
Basketball on fire.
On fire, yeah.
Ring on fire, basketball.
Wow.
Oh.
The Mariners.
No, the Rockies.
The Clovers.
The Blue Bears.
That's so bad. Welcome back to ITL. We talk hoops. We are going one-on-one with Kenneth Cotterill tonight, the co-host of Season 5. I am your host, Ernest Silva. Into Lab Podcast is back in the beautiful movie studio in San Antonio, Texas. Just one-on-one tonight. Nobody else, no producers. We're going to have some fun tonight. What's going on, Kenny?
No, I appreciate that we get to do just an Ernest and Ken show tonight. Just chat about some college basketball, some NBA. We were chatting before we went live about some crazy finishes already tonight in college basketball, namely that Kentucky and Mississippi State game. And yeah, it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, that Mississippi State game was nuts. I thought for sure there was time left on the clock. I hope that controversy goes everywhere tomorrow. But Reeves is special. Could be a future Rocket, and I would be okay with that. Tonight's episode brought to you by the Sport Gene. That's right. Hashtag what's in your DNA. Talk about how you can join our wonderful team at the Sport Gene. Reach out today. DM any one of us, Kenny Cotterill or myself here, talking basketball. And round number 1 is exactly what Kenny mentioned earlier. It's all about the eve of March Madness. We are nearly there. It is a leap year. Guys, it is going crazy right now in college basketball. First off, it's not even what you think. It's not on the men's side. It's the women's side. Kenny, I have one question and one question only for you. Iowa versus Ohio State. I know you saved some money for this game. $491 a ticket for the nosebleeds. You heading over there?
You know, as someone who has limited air travel options up here in Canada, I don't think that I'm going to be able to make it to this game. That being said, Caitlin Clark is the best thing in college basketball right now. We don't truly have a star on the men's side of things. There's a lot of good players. There's not a Caitlin Clark, quite frankly. She's electric to watch. she's got an opportunity over the last remaining games to, I believe it is, be the all-time leading scorer in men's or women's college basketball history. That's how legendary this girl is, and she's doing it at her home program. So I think that it's going to be truly electric atmosphere there. She's going to be so much fun to watch for years to come. She may have that Steph effect on the women's game moving forward, and I think it's going to be a great game, but sadly, I will not be in attendance for this one.
Yeah, 2 top 5 teams. If you haven't seen Caitlin Clark, you haven't watched some of the amazing highlight reels, you're probably living under a rock. She has been absolutely spectacular. And we'll replay that shot. This is the infamous record-breaking shot for her. She has her number and name there for Iowa. Just absolutely doing wonders for the game, and especially for women's basketball. I think this might be the biggest impact right now in women's basketball is Caitlin Clark and what she's been doing with Iowa. She is very special. I would love to see her in a three-point contest next year. Having some fun with the NBA players that are still around shooting three-pointers themselves. But I'm probably not spending $500 on the ticket. I might as well spend the money on going to March Madness for women's college basketball than going to one game of Caitlin Clark, which right now is averaging $175 less for a nosebleed seat. So I'd probably be doing that just to watch multiple games, multiple days, and then enjoying Caitlin Clark anyways. Kenny, final thoughts for you. Caitlin Clark, best female college basketball player all time.
I don't want to go into that territory. I think that if we're talking about her as the best just player, not talking greatest, because I think when we talk about that, we're talking about championships. And Brianna Stewart, she won 4 national titles and I believe was National Player of the Year multiple times. That's pretty tough to beat. Now, if Caitlin Clark wins it all this year and she takes an Iowa team that, let's face it, hasn't been a women's college basketball powerhouse, we can start to have that conversation, but I think it's going to be very tough to name her the greatest. She may be the greatest talent, but not have the championships or the National Player of the Years to go along with it. So that would be where I would be at with that.
Yeah, I haven't talked this much about Iowa hoops since Luka Garza was a big deal for the Iowa Hawkeyes a few years
Jordan
back.
Bohannon too. Those Iowa teams.
But all about it. Top 5 matchup, Iowa, Ohio State this weekend. Watch the big run. Let's see if she can lead her team to the promised land and get that national championship as you're watching. We'll move on to men's hoops. Duke's Kyle Filipowski, your guy's Duke's player. I'm sure you were in tears after this. A casualty of some crowd storming. If you didn't watch it, we're going to show the highlights right now. Courtesy of, I believe it's NBC's coverage of it. But Kyle Filipowski, after their loss, ran into some fans, or fans ran into him as the coaches were sharing a handshake. I did watch this live. I was watching. I was like, whoa, that guy just get hurt. Was that before or after? I couldn't tell. Kenny, this is your team. I'll let you talk first on this one. But your thoughts on this injury that happened to your star?
It's something that, yeah, could it be avoided if the fans wait another second or two to start court storming? Because if you watch it back, there's players who are already past the hoop when the clock's not even at 0. So yeah, did the fans kind of jump the gun a bit getting out there? Sure. Now, is Kyle Filipowski going to be fine? Yes, he is. He's game time decision for Louisville tomorrow. I would anticipate he's not going to play, both to save face for Duke, because they've kind of had an egg on the face week in regards to this. We should be talking more about the fact that they lost on the road to Wake Forest, even though they were underdogs in that game. We should be talking about the fact that they lost. And instead, we're talking about Filipowski pushing somebody, hurting himself, and then having to be helped off the court. And then now, this is what part of the issue with being a Duke fan as well, is that the college basketball media is very Duke focused. That's going to happen when you have Jay Billis, who's a former Duke grad, Seth Davis, also a former Duke grad. These are the guys. Jay Billis literally went on television and said that we should be arresting people who storm the court. That's how we're going to stop crazy. We should cut out court storming. but that's how you get them to stop it. The second they storm the court, let's give out a bunch of citations, and that's how we're going to solve it. So let's take the very essence out of college basketball, one of the most exciting things of college basketball. These are not pro athletes. These are students that are just excited because a small team like Wake Forest, who hasn't gotten out of the first round of the NCAA tournament since 2010, beat Duke and now has a real chance of getting into the tournament. So we should be talking more about the fact that Duke lost. Filipowski's going to be fine. He probably won't play against Louisville because they got Virginia on the weekend, and that's a much bigger matchup for them. But court storming's great. It's great for college basketball. If you ever get to be a part of it, anyone that I've talked to that has been a part of it, it's incredible. It's one of the best things that you get to do as a student at these universities. So they're going to be fine. I'm kind of sick of the fact that we're talking about banning this altogether.
So I went to a small university, and I don't know how much you know about my background, Kenny, but I went to Our Lady of Lake University here in San Antonio. All of you, wings up for all of you out there. I went to that. We don't have a lot of sports, right? It was a small fine arts university. We did have basketball. Now, basketball wasn't the best sport. I'll admit it. Soccer was probably the best sport when I was there, but they did have a couple of times where we were just like ecstatic, right? Like we had the number one team in the country in the building for NAIA. It was fun. It was back. It went to overtime. Our Lady of Lake, or Olu, comes out on top. Everybody storms. I mean, it was just storms the court. It was phenomenal. It was like the best feeling. It's the high of the year. Yep. It's what it's all about. There was actually another setting. We played Texas State. It was supposed to be a blowout against Texas State, right? And we ended up beating them. We ended up beating them in overtime, and all the small fan section stormed their court, right? And they were pissed off at us for doing that. So, like, I've been on both sides where we're a home game or an away game and we're storming the court. Like, that is part of, I think, the culture of college basketball is the fandom bleeds. Yeah, it bleeds. It's like the closest thing to, I don't know, maybe I'm off base here, but the closest thing to European soccer. Like, it's like, hey, we bleed these colors. This is like the actual fandom, right? You're not chasing players. You're not chasing teams. I think this is that you're taking it away from what college basketball is. I think that it's absolutely ridiculous, no matter what the sport, if you're going to ban storming or just rushing the court. I think it's dumb. I think it's just an old take because of somebody who almost got hurt. Like, let's not go crazy here. Right. I think it was absolutely fine. Now, obviously, there's player safety. So if you're storming the court, you probably want to avoid players. But altogether, we didn't get to play the clip, but the clip was crazy. The guy's going full blast from the stands, runs right into him, and everybody helps him off the court.
But the thing about the clip, Ernest, is that, so I watched it back. Tyrese Proctor's kind of near the foul line. He sees the fans storming the court early, and he's able to get out of the way, right? Filipowski, there's only like a second and a half left. He goes up to try and get the ball. Obviously, they steal it. Then the buzzer hasn't even sounded, and then he turns around, and then by then the fans, that's why I mean, like, if he has an extra second or two, because the fans did prematurely go on the court. That's a fact. If you go back and look, there's like 0.3 seconds left, and they're already underneath the hoop. Like that's how much they are already on the court. So he sees them late. Then you got to keep in mind as well that they've just lost a very close game. The intensity is probably high. Filipowski's probably not in a great mood over the fact that they just lost. And then you've got kids coming in and they're yelling in his face about the fact that they won. There's a difference between crowd storming to go and celebrate the win. And then there's doing it and getting in the player's face, right? That's not what it's supposed to be about. It's about storming the court, celebrating with your guys. You're a small North Carolina team that just beat Duke, and Duke fans are mostly mad because we don't court storm because you're Duke, right?
Right.
You're never going to court storm when you're Duke. You maybe would do it against Carolina if you were unranked and they were ranked top 5. But how often does that happen? Very rarely. So I think that's mostly why people are mad, and then it gets blown out of proportion because you've got Billis and Seth Davis just being the worst kind of people telling you to ban the court storming.
I'm probably the worst kind of student. We'll transition after this, but I'd probably be that guy that just storms the court after every game at that point. Like we're just gonna storm the court when we beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi or when we beat UNC Greensboro. We're storming the court now every single game.
Storming every game.
That's right. That's right. This is ITL talking with Kenneth Cotterill. We're going to talk Texas basketball right after this short interlude.
Give me a hell yeah!
That's right. That was Wake Forest fans, 0.3 seconds on the clock at storming, saying take it to the court. The big question I have, Kenny, and I'll lead this segment, is Texas basketball. Right now, we're recording this. It's 8:53 Central Time. And Texas basketball is winning by 20 over Texas Tech in Lubbock, right? A rivalry game, but of course, it's the last time they may be playing there for a while. And this is, of course, because Texas is moving to the SEC. Texas is like a bit of a head scratcher for me. And I don't know if you've watched any of Texas or how much you watch Texas basketball, but in some games they look like the team last year they did, right? Really competitive, elite play. Dylan Mitchell. Dylan Dessua has been fantastic this year. Abrams is, I think, third in scoring in the league. Then they have these flat games where they just look absolutely terrible. Bad losses to UCF. And against ranked opponents, they've lost close games. They've lost some really close games. They played a lot of ranked games. To me, Texas is absolutely a dance team, but they're not. I don't know if they have a lot of talent to make a deep run, but they are a dance team, but they're fringe dance team, right? Like they have a ton of losses, but they've played a lot of ranked teams. So for me, Texas has the talent to make a run. They just aren't performing at top notch, and they've had the ball go the wrong way on many games. So for me, Texas basketball, and I'm biased, Texas basketball is a dancing team. To you, outside in, is Texas a good, decent team, should be in the dance for you? Or are you one of those that say fringe, they're out, too many losses, they're bottom of the conference?
So as of this morning, I like looking at bracketology, not because I believe that Lenardi gets it right every time, but because it gives you a bit of a baseline. So heading into today, they were a part of the last four buys. So they had breathing room. They were also at the top of that list. So they had some breathing room. They're taking on Texas Tech. As long as they hold on, because that's not a great loss, even if it is on the road. I think the conference is always going to help because you just get to face more quality teams and pick up more quality wins. I think one of the issues that we have in college basketball every year is that we talk about all the great wins. We don't factor in some of the bad losses throughout the year. Like the Texas Tech loss wasn't great. If you're going to lose to West Virginia, that's never good, even if it is on the road. UCF isn't great. So there's some bad losses in there, but what's really carrying them is the Baylor and Oklahoma back-to-back wins. Like that's huge for them. Early in the year, you lose to Marquette, you lose to UConn, that's fine. I don't like Rodney Terry. I think that
I was going to talk about him next.
I don't think that he's the guy to be leading Texas basketball. Now, I love Max Abmas. Like, I was a huge fan of his when he was at Oral Roberts. When we picked Oral Roberts to go to the Sweet 16 on ITL a couple of years ago, he was one of the guys that I really liked. And then when he went to Texas, I thought, this is a great way to end out his career. He's a great scorer. He used to be like a 25-point per game scorer. Now you're always going to scale it back when you go to a big conference. You're not going to average 25 like you would at an Oral Roberts. But I don't know what this Texas team identity is. I think that they're that team that could they go on a run to the Elite Eight because they're just battle tested? Sure. But there's so many losses in there that they're not even necessarily terrible. Like, look at their last number of losses on there. Kansas, Houston, Iowa State, Houston, BYU. Those are their last
five ranked losses.
5 ranked losses, but it's you look at the UCF and you look at the West Virginia, and that's what'll concern you in the Texas Tech. Now, getting Texas Tech back, that goes a long way probably in getting them into the tournament altogether. I also don't think that some of the teams that are behind them are going to be able to pick up the quality wins that they're going to need to get in. Like if we're looking at first 4 out right now, has Villanova, Utah, and Colorado. unless Villanova is going to go and pick up a big quality Big East win or two down the stretch, or they would probably have to win the Big East, quite frankly. And I don't know if anyone's going to beat UConn or Creighton there. Utah and Colorado, the Pac-12 is bad. You basically just have to beat Arizona to be taken seriously, maybe Oregon at that point. You start to go to next four out, Butler, another Big East team, Ole Miss. I don't think that they have the quality wins. So they're probably safe getting in. I can't take them seriously with Rodney Terry because I'm not convinced that he should be the guy.
That's funny. Next question. I don't know either. And it started with recruiting, right? Like we saw the players he could bring in. He saw the influence. Like there were good players, but they were not great influential players to me. You brought back Dylan Mitchell because he obviously didn't have a good draft, heat check for him. And now you're running back and you've lost close games you probably should have won this year. You're struggling in game planning against teams who take it up another notch, and Texas has looked bad in some of these games. And I'm hoping it's just a part of so many new players that that joining the system just takes time. But there's 4 conference games left. Like we are going to go to the conference tournament, and then it's March Madness time, and hopefully you're in. You
need one win in the Big 12 tournament to solidify yourselves. Is what it boils down to, because other teams, they're going to pick up wins in their own conference tournaments. Texas, they technically haven't been great in Big 12 play. Like I think they're 6-8, but they still have opportunities down the stretch too. Like if you pick up a win, their final game is at home against Oklahoma. You're probably not going to get a lot of credit if you beat Texas Tech or Oklahoma State. If you beat Baylor on the road, then you certainly are going to be in the tournament at that point, because if you're sweeping a team like Baylor, they just won't leave you out. But
whether you win a Big 12 game or not, you're in? So?
If you beat Baylor on the road, I think you're in no matter what.
If Texas wins
as long as you don't lose tonight or Oklahoma State. Like if you lose to Oklahoma, they'll forgive you, but yeah.
If they win out, they end up 21-10. The only unranked losses you would have as Texas would be that Tech, West Virginia, and UCF loss. Everything else is against ranked Big 12 opponents.
And that's why they're giving them the benefit of the doubt of a lot of those losses are pretty close too. Like you lost against Houston in overtime. I remember watching that game. So that's one that I think you can kind of hang your hat on of like, look, we took on a top 3 team in the country and we gave them everything that they could handle. So quality of losses also helps. Like they don't have any super egregious, like got blown out by 30. Some other teams in your own conference have that. Like when Kansas, now they're going to be in easily, but Kansas, when they lost to Texas Tech is an example of that.
Yeah, for sure. But let's transition because you bring up Houston. I think that's a fantastic thing to go and segue to. We're talking with Kenneth Cotterill. We're going one-on-one right now. College basketball, our final topic, and he brought it up before I even said it. That's right. He brought up the Houston Cougars basketball team, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Houston Cougars because they sit as number 1. This is the 5th time in 7 years, Kenny. They're number 1 towards the end of the season, and I'm feeling like I have some deja vu here, and I'm going to ask the question I ask every year. Is Houston the team to beat? And then in college basketball, they're number 1 right now. Their team is playing elite defense. They've got a couple of clutch playmakers. I'm biased, so let me get your unbiased take before we go into my take. Is Houston the team to beat?
I think that the committee was very unfriendly to UConn this past week. I get it. The Creighton loss, you lose by 19. But at Creighton, like that's always going to be a tough environment to win in. Prior to that, they were basically running through everybody. Seton Hall and Kansas are their only other 2 losses on the year. So the Seton Hall one isn't great, but the Kansas one, you can certainly forgive that at Kansas. So UConn for me, because I really like Hurley as a coach. They're the defending champs as well, which is crazy because they had some turnover at UConn and yet they still find themselves as such a good team. I think that if you're a bracket person, don't even bother with Purdue. Purdue is the most fraudulent top 3 team potentially of the last 10 years for me. I think
it ranks up there with Virginia for me.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia, that's fair. And honestly, it's probably ranked with Purdue last year. So they can go along with the other Purdue team that was there. Because it's the same freaking team that just got bounced by a 16 seed. Now, the last time that happened, Virginia then went on and won the title, and then it was egg on the face moment. But I don't think that's the case here because Zach Edey he's an eyesore to watch. And I'm a Canadian, and he's a Canadian, so I'll probably get hate for that. But I think that if he doesn't score 25 and get 15 rebounds, then they're going to go home early. So my only concern with Houston, they're number 2 for me. They're just slightly behind UConn. I worry. I love that they have good guard play, but I think that they're susceptible to not being able to keep up with teams from a scoring perspective. Now, that defense is incredible. But if you get that night where a team hits 10 to 12 threes, and they cross 70 points for whatever reason, I just don't know if Houston will be able to keep up with that. So that would be my only concern on the Houston front. And that's why I think I like UConn a little bit more, because I think they can beat you in a knockdown, drag it out game, but they can also beat you by scoring 90 or 100. So that would be the only reason why I would have a bit of doubt about Houston, because I really like just your guard play in general. Cryer, Sheed, like there's just a ton of talent there.
Yeah, very guard heavy. And
You do want that in March, to be fair.
Yes, and I will say this is probably the best defensive team overall to the scheme that Sampson has had at his disposal in Houston. They have been absolutely phenomenal. They swarm the ball. They lead the nation in defensive possessions, and they still have an elite defense when it comes to their rankings. They're top 10 overall. I love LJ Cryer. I think he's a clutch performer. He's what Dick Vitale would call PTP, right? Primetime performer. I think he's he's phenomenal. And when you watch the Cougars basketball team, impossible to beat at home. And they play such stout defense on the road that they just swarm around the basketball. Turnovers are their friend. The reason why Cougar basketball doesn't translate past the Sweet 16 as often is because that defense lightens up a bit, right? The shots start falling, the rims get a little bit lighter, and it gets a little tougher to keep up. And if you look at the Cougar 3-point percentage on the team, their best 3-point percentage is LJ Cryer. He's shooting 38%. Yeah. And it goes down. It goes down from there. And it's not impressive. And so they may not need high output right now, right? Because that's not Cougar style, but they will have to find another gear again in this dance. And so if you are betting, so we are a betting show, but if you are betting and you're thinking Houston Cougars is a good bet, right? You want to you want to see what those matchups are and how they're matched up against high volatile shooting teams when they get into their bracket. And that's something I'm going to look out for Houston to see if they make it to the Final Four this year. I'm really hoping they do. To me, they're not the best team in the nation, but they are right there in the top 3. And I do like UConn a lot. I think that they probably should be number 1 right now. I'm going to bring up the college basketball standings. And they do have Purdue and Arizona up there as far as their the power index. Is that what they have on there? Let me change up
it goes Houston, Purdue, and then UConn is kind of where the AP poll is at. And then I think Tennessee came in at 4 today. So they're a little bit lower on Arizona. Arizona hasn't looked great at times. But if we're talking about like high volume shooting teams, it's why I get worried about a team like Alabama. It's not even that I think Alabama's the better team. But Alabama, they could have 117 points scored on them like Kentucky did on the weekend, but they could go for 100 themselves. I think they've gone over 100 like 8 times this year. So because they have the ability to shoot from the outside, Houston's always going to play a clean game. Like they don't turn it over. They create turnovers. They rebound well. It's just it's classic tournament. Is there a team that can come into your building and just they start out the game like 5 of 6 from 3 and then trying to recover is tough. So it's the only reason why I'm a little bit off put by them, but I do think, and honestly, actually, another good example would be a team like Florida, because Florida plays with pace. They would get up and down, could cause some issues for Houston if they get out to like a big first half. They drop 40 points and then it's like 40-30 and they're trying to recover.
Don't any of y'all think that I am not a Houston Cougars fan, Stan, or thinking they're going to go all the way? Absolutely, they're going to win national champion. Samson's going to be celebrating. There's going to be
I hope he
parades in the
does.
streets.
He's an elite coach in NCAA right now, and he deserves the absolute praise of winning a national title.
Completely agree. And so if you feel like I'm crazy and you want to bet against that, the ITL bracket challenge is where you want to be. We're trying to get the maximum amount of participation. $100 on the line to the winner who wins outright. It's going to be myself, so I'll be paying myself with one massive check when Houston or Texas ends up the winner, because I'll have 2 brackets. And you guys will have to just watch me accept that $100 check. But if you want to come and compete against Kenneth Cotterill or against myself, go ahead and bring out that bracket. Let's sign up. You'll see that link in next week's episode as the brackets open up and the challenge gets started. So we are going to take a small interlude, and as we do that, we're going to switch to the NBA, where we're going to talk a little bit about a couple players before we end the night, and then some of those games we want to bet on. Kenny Cotterill and I have 4 games that we're going to put on a parlay for you after you win your bets tonight, because I know everybody's betting Rockets tonight. So we're going to get that spread tonight. If you didn't know it, BCMG does still have some active streamers. Now, of course, we're excited to talk about the Sport Gene quite a bit, but BCMG streamers are still going hard. So why don't we feature them for a moment, and then we'll talk some NBA.
Jill going down the hill, gonna go fetch Jack in his little pill. Jack feeling down and that's pretty bad. Let's go.
Oh, yo, clip that headshot.
No.
A pistol. What? Okay, that didn't count.
Woo, let's go, baby, clutch it up. Yeah, I like it.
What? No way. Did that precision just kill me?
Let's go!
Nice, Papa.
Papa with the clutch kill at the end. Let's go.
Oh, I missed. That was bad.
Got him.
Nice.
Alright, I'm going to go steal their shit.
That is definitely orange. Green.
You're dumb and it's orange.
We're both wrong, red.
I could get that solo if I tried it a couple times, but we'll come back to it.
I'm fucking dick right now. Holy shit. Like, I fucking suck right now.
Yeah, I can tell.
All right, it's round 2. We're going to talk about the great NBA debate. We are here one-on-one with Kenny Cotterill. We're going right into some NBA action. We're going to end tonight's show with this last segment. We have 5 players we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a few things, right? Where they're at right now, what we feel their future is, and then where we think they end up next year. Let's start off with some of these names, some injured right now, which is why we're going to talk them out. Let's start off with Trae Young. I think Trae Young is super interesting, right? Atlanta has a huge decision to go with DeJounte Murray or Trae Young in the offseason, and there is a ton of belief that they may move on from Trae Young. Now, they're absolutely 500 since getting Trae Young. They have not been better or worse with him or without him. So, Kenny, if I had to pick on this player and say, what is he? I mean, this is just basically a high volatile shooting point guard and runs an offense efficiently in transition and does it pretty above average in the half court. He gets compared a lot, not fair to him, but he gets compared a lot to Luka because that was the trade, right? Like he gets compared and it's not really fair because they don't really have the same playing style, nor do they have the same system. So, Trae Young to me is just a high volume shooting point guard. And he is going to be, and I'm sorry, I'm not even showing, but he's going to be making $40 million next year. Okay. So that's a lot to consider. There's only so many teams that can afford that, especially with the new trade rules. He's going to be making $40 million, 43, 45 thereafter before he finally has an early termination option. There's the rundown. Kenny, your thoughts on Trae Young before we give our thoughts on where he's playing next year?
I think we thought after Trey took them on that Eastern Finals run a few years ago that he was maybe a guy that was capable, maybe not of taking a team to a championship, but to a finals. And I just wonder if the ship has sailed on that. I think the situation isn't great for what you want Trey to be, because what you really want is for him to have a big guy. He would be great with an Embiid or a Jokic, because he really wants a pick and roll type big that, and I mean, that's easy to say. Like, of course he wants to be with a top 3 player, but I wonder in Atlanta. I mean, first of all, the roster's not great. They've had some turnover. I think the organization's a bit of a mess. We've seen that with head coaches over the last number of years. Jalen Johnson, I talked about him on a show earlier tonight. I think that he's a guy that could help Trey moving forward, but they have a lot of guys, not stars, just a lot of guys, quality pros, you would call them. And I just wonder if the ship has sailed on him being a number 1 option on a championship team like we might have thought he could have been a couple years ago.
So if you're in the league, right, and you think of scenarios of trades available for players and different teams that are trying to contend and move up, where's the spot you have him? Or does he stay in Atlanta?
The problem is, if he stays in Atlanta, what can you go and get to help him? Now, I think that the trade pieces are there to potentially help him. Just who's a guy that would fit alongside him? And as I said, there's not a lot of guys that I think fit in perfectly with his playing style. I honestly think Sabonis would have been a guy that you would like to pair with Trey, because he can play in the post, but he's also really solid in the pick and roll. Maybe it's a guy like Markkanen, because Utah's not trying to win games. If he was to remain in Atlanta, you go and you give up probably. You would hope to keep Jalen Johnson, but you could give up Bogdanovich, Bay, couple picks, maybe Capella as well, and maybe that Landry Markkanen. But again, I don't know if that gets you any closer, because I don't think that Trae Young, Lauri Markkanen, and Jalen Johnson are doing anything in the Eastern Conference, especially when you've got Boston. So I think Trey is kind of stuck for the next little while. He's only 25. His game probably translates to playing for a long time. So I think we kind of just have to ride out Trey being a good individual player, at least for now. But I don't know if he's going to find team success for a while with the Hawks.
Okay. I've got one I'm going to throw out there, and it's not the homer pick I thought I was going to go with. But now that I'm thinking about it,
or were you going to say San Antonio to pair with Wemby?
San Antonio is where I was going with it. Pair up Wemby and Trey.
They do need a point guard, so I get it.
You need a point guard. And he plays with a big, right? Even though Wemby doesn't consider himself a big at 7'3", but like let's be honest, like that would be a pairing, right? Like
it would, yeah.
That would be a good 1A 1B combo, and you have Trae Young, who's been in the league, half a decade and at least, and can show the ropes to Wemby and not put all the pressure on Wemby. I think San Antonio would be a really good place, and they have the pieces to trade back. My own take.
Wouldn't it be a full circle moment too for San Antonio to trade DeJounte to Atlanta, just to then have Atlanta trade Trey to San Antonio?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Or DeJounte just comes back and Trae Young stays there. I'm not sure what I want more at this point. Just give me all the drama.
Yeah, exactly.
And Joshua Mays chiming in. I know some of these words. Hope you're having a good night. Thanks, man. Thanks for watching the show. I appreciate the support. Let's move on. We have another fun topic and another fun name, Joel Embiid, right? Joel Embiid is obviously MVP and has been rumored to not want to be in Philly since the exodus of James Harden and the continuously turnstile of his situation there in Philadelphia. He's hurt again, not eligible for All-Pro or MVP status this year, and is going to be out at least another 3 to 4 weeks. Philly's playing hard. They're trying to stay in the Eastern Conference, but there's not a lot of talent on Philly to keep up compared to the other teams in the East. Kenny, is Joel's days in Philly numbered, or do you see him continuing his rise there in Philly?
I think when we look at Philly, it's a lot like you have an inflatable raft, and then you just get a hole, and then you try and patch it, and then another hole pops up, and then you try and patch it. They had the roster 4 years ago or 5 years ago when Jimmy Butler was there and Ben Simmons was there and JJ Redick was there, and they made the wrong decision. They said, see ya Jimmy, see ya JJ, we're building around Simmons, and then they moved off of Simmons. They brought in Harden. That clearly didn't work out. And now, like, I don't know what else, because Philly's been trying. We can't say that they've been stagnant. You've got a center that can't stay healthy, but when he is healthy, he might be the best player in the entire league. He's averaging 35 this year or something crazy. Like he was a monster for them when he was playing. Maxey stepped up this year. Maxey's going to be the most improved player. They added Buddy Hield. They added Kelly Oubre. They kept Tobias Harris. They somehow got out from under Al Horford, and now they're stuck again. And I think we're ruling Philadelphia a failure because they haven't got to the East Finals, but they continually lose to Milwaukee and Boston or Miami, good teams. It's not as if they haven't done it. They even fired their coach and brought in Nick Nurse, which I thought was what they wanted. And now Joel's doesn't want to stay. So I don't know what works for you, Joel. Are you hoping that Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are going to call and say, hey, come play with us, and we're going to move Bradley Beal and a few others to Philly? I don't know what other situation works for him. I don't know what you think.
Well, I feel like the players they had with Tobias Harris and Tyrese Maxey, they are financially strapped too. If you're Daryl Morey,
what are you expecting to do, right?
Yeah, what are you going to do? You'd have to get rid of a slew of players, and then now you're gutting your team. Yeah, you can hope for a PJ Tucker to come back, or you can hope for some of these glue guys to come in and help you win a championship. But then you're just you're reinventing the wheel, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? You got an MVP caliber player. You've got the pieces. It's just a matter of making the scheme and fit work to me. I think Joel Embiid has a spot. Now, if he is unhappy and he does not want to play for Nick Nurse, and this is not it, then if you're Daryl Morey, you make a hard decision, right? You're going to be paying somebody $50 million to be unhappy on the team, and you can't fill a roster to suffice the talents around you.
Ernest, I don't know if you know this. Do you know how many players, if the next year's season started today, are under contract for the 76ers?
I'm going to guess 20 players?
It's only Joel Embiid.
It's only Joel Embiid?
Everyone else is expiring.
That is nuts. See, I did not know that. Okay.
So I'm looking at their payroll right now, and for 24-25, it is Joel Embiid at $51 million. Sorry, Paul Reed at $7 million, but that's not fully guaranteed even.
This is after next season, or this is for next season?
For next season. Now, Maxey,
okay.
I don't know if he signed his extension or not. I thought that he had. That's why I was really confused by that. But if there is room to move off of some of these guys, because you're finally going to get out from under Tobias money, because that was just a really bad contract. That when I first started Shoot Basketball Podcast, I remember the very first episode we talked about how bad Tobias Harris and Al Horford's contracts were in Philly. And they're finally going to be out from under those, which is nice. But I think he's just lost faith in Daryl Morey. I think that James Harden badmouthed Daryl Morey enough where he doesn't trust him either. And so he's just ready to get out of Philly. I truly think that it's just a trust breakdown. I don't think that it's a repairable relationship of we're going to bring in guys to play around you.
So Tyrese Maxey did not sign an extension. and they decided to the Sixers decided to opt out of it for cap purposes. Now he can sign with them for the max, which is 42.6 next year, but they would have to establish a whole new contract.
Which he deserves that money because he's going to be the most improved player, potentially an all NBA player. So even if Joel leaves, you're probably paying Maxey, and then you're just rebuilding if Joel has no interest in staying. Because at the end of the day, if Joel's staying at 50 million, yeah, Maxey's going to get like 42. Then you have to fill out 50 million for the rest of your roster. And that's not going to be enough to... Boston's just been so fortunate with the way that their contracts have worked out that's who you're competing against, right? This whole situation in Philly is you have to win a title. It's not good enough to just be a perennial contender. It's when are you finally going to get to the finals? Because Joel Embiid is an MVP caliber guy. Because Jokic there, he won. Giannis got there, he won. Like these guys that he's been competing with, he's kind of the odd man out now.
Hi, Luke. Good to see you, buddy. And here I was thinking that the Sixers probably had a bunch of dead cap space for all the trades they've been making, and Daryl Morey's put them in a position where they can just go after whoever they want this offseason. That's pretty crazy.
I think what helped them was that Buddy Hield move, because when they brought in Hield, they kind of dumped some of that because they knew he was expiring, so it gave them a bit more flexibility of if it doesn't work out.
Makes sense.
And it could still work out this year. Like if Joel does come back and play come playoff time, and you have healthy Tobias, Buddy Hield's still there, Maxey's there, they brought in Lowry, they have Oubre, like you could put together a series or two. I just don't think that they're on the same level as Boston or even Milwaukee.
We're going to speed round these last three names and some of the fan favorites right after this short break. Okay, we have some two not so serious ones, but then we have a very serious one that you and I are going to disagree on. So let's talk this out. Let's go first. I had to bring him up. It wouldn't be an NBA show if we didn't talk about him. LeBron James is up next. That's your guy. You got your Lakers hoodie on. I see it. LeBron James rumored to have a 7-digit contract on the table from the Lakers. Where is he playing, Kenny?
I mean, he's probably playing in LA, but he's not playing seriously in LA at that point. I mean, I think last year people felt like the Lakers were just going to be back. And it's like, no, LeBron's going to be older. And Davis has been healthy this year. And that hasn't mattered. The Lakers are still not good.
They're bad.
But it's tough to take them seriously because LeBron doesn't take the regular season seriously. He feels like if I'm the 9 in the play-in, I'm going to win that game. And then I'm going to be the 8, and then I can beat OKC or Minnesota. Like, good luck seeing me in 7 games. I think that's the way that he views it. So it's very tough to evaluate the Lakers with where they're at, but I don't know. They're gonna pay him. LA can't afford to lose LeBron. He just brings so much value to the table because people will go and watch 40-year-old LeBron. That's just the way
they will. But the big debate is not only Bron, it's Bronny, right? Like Bronny is going to go into the draft. Now, is Bronny going to come out of the draft?
This year's draft, though.
He's already next year's draft.
They're already draft scouts are pulling him from this year's draft. They're not even considering him as a prospect because he's averaging like 5 points at USC. So
5 magical points, mind you. Okay. 5 magical points.
I still think that he's good. I think that he is in a terribly coached program right now that was supposed to have a lot of talent and they just haven't performed, and he's not getting a lot of minutes, but he's shown flashes where he could be like a spot up shooter in the league. He's just, are you really drafting a guy to be a spot up shooter and that's it? Like, probably.
Right. Do you feel like no matter what, when Bronny comes out, that's where LeBron goes to play? Whoever drafts him gets LeBron. Are you under that same assumption as a Lakers fan?
I don't know. Did you see the LeBron deleted tweet yesterday? The one where
No, what was that?
There was an NBA draft thing that was saying that exact thing about Bronny, and then he went off about like Bronny's paving his own way and all this.
Oh yeah, I did read that.
And then deleted it.
Let the kid be a kid.
Let the kid be a kid, and it's like, well, that's just not the reality. It's your son. Like that's just you called him Bronny. What did you think was going to happen?
Well, you can't call yourself King James and then say let the prince leave the prince alone, right? Like,
I
it's
mean,
not real
he
life.
also said that he doesn't want a farewell tour because he doesn't like the attention, but he's the one that got the chosen one tattooed on his chest when he was like a teenager. So I don't know. I don't know what to believe with him. It's all smoke and mirrors. I think Bronny, maybe. I think that's probably not at the top of his priority list anymore. I think he truly does care about hopefully getting a 6th championship so he can solidify being the GOAT, but he's just not going to get it with the Lakers.
Yeah, I think LeBron returns to the Lakers in some crazy deal with a player option all over again, and then he ends up wherever Bronny comes out. Unpopular take, though. I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it on the record. Bryce is better than Bronny.
Ooh, that's an interesting take. Is that based off of all the high school tape that you've been watching of Bryce?
That's it. Just the highlight videos that they actually show. I haven't been at any games. I'm just telling you right now.
That's why you can't go to Iowa and Ohio State, because Bryce is playing this weekend, so you've got to head to his game.
And it was $500 just to go watch him play. So, I mean,
those games probably would be $500.
I'm going to do it for the show. Kenny, I know nobody outside of this show is talking about it, but Jalen Green, right? Jalen Green has been an interesting topic. Inside voice here. Jalen Green is absolutely not ecstatic about his role right now with Houston. He's trying to figure it out with Ime Udoka and playing in the system. He's gotten better all around as a player under Ime, but he is not that featured scorer, nor has he had a great year. It's been his worst year production-wise as a player. But he's part of the Big Six young core, right? And Houston may end up having two more added to that core. There's not enough basketball for all these young core members and veteran stars on this Rocket team. Now the Thunder have had this problem. The Spurs have had this problem. Everybody has this problem when you're rebuilding. But Kenny, Jalen Green is now a subject of being probably part of a big trade this offseason for Houston. Do you see Jalen Green in the same light, or is this just going to be they need to get him out of the books?
I was unaware that there was a Big Six going on in Houston, so I'm glad that I've learned something here on tonight's show.
I need that TikTok bit where there's surprise.
surprise. I mean, if I'm Houston, if he doesn't want to be there, I'm not overly worried. Because first of all, he's gonna command an okay return. Because he's young, he's clearly shown promise. Sengun is your future. He is going to be the featured guy for you guys moving forward. You still have other talented young guys that can show some promise still. So I don't think that it's a major loss. I think you would prefer to keep him. But again, it's almost worse if you keep him and he doesn't want to be there. Because that can be so toxic for that locker room. And they're pretty fragile because they are so young. And I don't think that Dylan Brooks and Van Vliet, as great as they have been for helping develop these guys, I don't think that they would be able to reign in a locker room with that many young guys. So I'd be concerned about that. If he doesn't want to be there, ship him out, get a pick, get another vet in return, maybe a big to help Sengun even further along. There's a difference between vets that play and just vet minimum guys. So if you can get one of those guys, that's huge.
But I just want to go get Trae Young and put him on the Rockets. I mean, yeah, 2K wise, that'd be phenomenal, right?
All right, fine. Just straight up swap. Trae, come on over. Jalen Green, see you later. We'll maybe even throw in Jay Sean Tate.
Now, if you wanted to get cute with it, right? Jalen Green joining DeJounte and Trae Young, since he has only a $14 million contract, sending Capella back to Houston.
You'd want kind of Capella and then throw in like Sadiq Bey. Call it good.
And a pick.
Yeah.
And a pick. I think that's worth it. It would get interesting, but yes, that would be intriguing for Houston to do. I don't know if there's any rotation spot for Bey at this point, but it would be interesting to see what kind of trade would draw up for that. But I'm gonna go with my account, right? I am all about Jalen Green. I do like him as a player. I think he's gonna continue to be a star. I don't want to give up, but Cam Whitmore is very good.
Yeah.
Like Cam Whitmore.
That's what I mean. You have young guys, so that's why.
Yeah. Cam Whitmore, you have to give him the shot. And Jalen Green's in that way. So it just depends who you believe in more at that point. And I believe in both. I just think Cam Whitmore's special too. So who do I like more? It's just going to be tough. And Amen Thompson has been phenomenal since he's been back from injury. As Houston carries a 1-point lead against the Oklahoma City Thunder at the end of the first quarter. But if you had to pick a Kenny, where's Jalen Green playing next year?
I will say that he's playing in Houston still. I think that they'll figure out a way to keep him.
There you have it. We're hitting our last final player here, and it was brought by Kenneth Cotterill himself. We're going to differ a bit. Here we go. Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is that final player. Kenny, give us a rundown. What do you think about Kevin Durant?
No, you know what? You said that we were going to be differing, so I brought up the player. So. You go.
Okay. Kevin Durant, some guy named Durantula out in Phoenix. He's been playing somewhat good ball past 10 years. At the very least, been playing good ball probably for, 2 decades now. He's been in the NBA since when?
Pretty close. About 16, 17 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
He's 07.
The Durantula played for the great University of Texas basketball. Can never forget that. And has been on notorious teams like the Warriors and had his championship runs and then had his Brooklyn stint. And now he's playing in Phoenix with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. And that's been a very roller coaster ride there in Phoenix. They've had some very big ups, but they've had some very low lows in Phoenix. And it's been tumultuous, to say the least. Okay, my take is this. I believe, and I'm in the minority, I believe Kevin Durant can lead a team to a championship. I am a firm believer that Kevin Durant can lead a team to a championship. When he has a team he wants to play for, right? I'm like Oklahoma City. When he has a team he wants to play for that takes him in and builds a system around him, it is a great situation, and Kevin Durant is obviously a superstar. He will lead that team to a championship. Has he done it? He took a team to the finals that way, but he didn't win it. He joined a superstar team and won it. So if I'm Kevin Durant, I'm in the legacy. After this year, if this year does not work out, I'm out in Phoenix. I'm in the minority on that, but I'm out of Phoenix. I'm not staying, right? I am not staying in that situation. Now, Kevin Durant, his contract, he's making a cool $50 million, right? So in order for him to go, he would have to be traded again. But I don't think I'm staying in that situation, and I'm joining a team that has a core and the assets to trade for me, and I'm rekindling, and I'm going back to my roots, and I'm going to OKC.
Ooh.
And OKC sends over some key contracts of the Giddies of the world, sends over a Dort maybe, and then some assets back because they have assets galore. And Kevin Durant and Shai with Chet Holmgren run it in OKC next year and make the big run back to the finals. And that would be my take on Kevin Durant. I don't know if that's popular or not. I haven't read the blogs of Thunder Kingdom, right? But that is, or the Thunderdome. That is my take.
I truly do believe that Oklahoma City is that's the best destination for any player that wants to win a title late in their career. Like LeBron, if he was serious, would see what OKC's interest is.
I agree.
Because there's 3 players who are untouchable in OKC. It's Jalen Williams, it's Chet Holmgren, and it is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Everyone else is probably on the table at that point. You've got draft picks galore. You've got, Giddy's a good pro. Dort's solid. That there's a lot of talent in OKC. So they would certainly be able to offer that. I think that's why LeBron's intriguing. It's why Kevin Durant's intriguing. Anyone on the Clippers is probably intriguing if they don't win it this year. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring up Kevin Durant was if the playoffs, and I'm doing it based off of today. If the playoffs started today, the Phoenix Suns would face the LA Clippers in the playoffs, which would be talk about a series.
Crazy
because
stars.
On one side, you would have Westbrook, Kawhi, Paul George, Harden, and then on the other side, you would have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and I'll throw Grayson Allen in there because I'm a Duke guy. And he is shooting the highest 3-point percentage in the entire league this year. So we'll put him as a part of the big 4 that they have going on.
He's got 90-50-40 right now, right? Doesn't he have 90-50-40 going?
I think so. And I mean, let's face it, like if we're going to call Houston a big 6, we can slip Grayson in there and call this the Phoenix big 4. So we'll use that
might as
term.
well add Eric Gordon at that point.
yeah. Throw in Nurkic. You know what? Phoenix has got a big 6. Phoenix has got a big 6. We're good there. So if I was picking that series right now, I would pick the Clippers to win that in 6 games. I truly believe that they're the better roster top to bottom. Phoenix is in cap hell, like beyond cap hell. I think over the next 3 years, at least 2 years following this year, they would have 190 million in payroll. 150 of that goes to their top 3 guys. They've got that Nurkic contract, which isn't great either. It's not bad, but it's not great when you have the team that you have. So I think that Durant, they have to win that series. And that's not even enough to keep him. That's just to ensure that the next day he doesn't walk into your office and say, I'm done playing in Phoenix. Didn't work. It's just the fit isn't here with this big 3. Then even if you win that series, you're playing the winner of Minnesota, and then they're probably facing the Lakers or Warriors or Mavs. So none of those are great situations either for you. And then you would probably have to face Denver as well. So Phoenix is in a really tough spot. I don't think that Kevin Durant is ever going to win a title in Phoenix. I think he's 35 right now. By the time the finals would roll around next year, he'd be 36. That's probably when you start to talk about his final run at a title being a number 1 option would be next year. And I don't think that it's going to be in Phoenix. I agree that he should go back to the Thunder. I think that that's a really good spot for him. If he's not willing to go there, I would like to see him maybe, and I know that it's not a destination, but it's a team that could offer you some young players and some picks. Maybe goes to Orlando. You pair him with Paolo and Wagner. That could be your big 3. They would probably have to add more guys in free agency to really make it that intriguing. But guys like Drew Holiday are going to be available. So maybe you bring him in and then it turns into more of a big 4 there. But I do think that Durant, he's not going to win it in Phoenix. I just think that it just doesn't work what they tried to concoct there. They thought that deal was probably more than what he is, and that contract's really bad for what production you're getting. And that's why it's ultimately going to fail.
So you want to say that his villain arc hasn't been completed yet? Like, just find a way to get him to Dame and Giannis, right? Like, just
but I don't. So here's the thing: he could go one of 2 ways, right? He could go the villain arc, and he goes and he joins that team. Maybe he goes to Philly of all teams because they've got room, and that's how Daryl Morey convinces Embiid to stay. We get Durant, Embiid, Maxey, because let's face it, everyone's played with Embiid. We had Simmons go through there and Harden. We need the full Brooklyn Nets big 3 to go through Philly to play with Embiid, so we get Durant to go there. And then they would have a bit of room to maybe add, like I mentioned, Drew Holiday. Maybe you add him as well. And then that's how Philly keeps it together because they're going to have so much room. Or he goes the wholesome route, which would be the OKC route. If he went to OKC, they won a championship. He delivers with Shea. He gets all the credit because he's Durant, but Shea is probably past him at this point as far as like players in the league. He's For me, he's the MVP this year. I don't know if he's going to win it, but I think that if we're talking about them being the 2 seed and he's averaging like 34 or 31, 6 and 5 and shooting like 55% as a guard, that's pretty damn impressive, but don't know if it'll happen. So he has the option. He can either go villain or hero on it. I kind of hope that he goes hero because that would be a fun way to wrap up Durant's career and probably be a top 3 most exciting careers to follow.
I really hope that, and this is like the next 5-year plan for the NBA, but that Durant goes back to OKC, wins 1, Davis Cordova messages everybody for the first time in years, and then we get
reminds you that he's an OKC fan.
yeah, and then we get an expansion to Seattle, and then he retires there. Right, plays his final season in Seattle, retires. Like that would be the ultimate Kevin Durant arc, is that he gets to go back to where his roots were, wins it.
The thing is, the NBA has room for 2 expansion teams, which Vegas we assume is going to be one. There's nothing that says that it can't be Vegas and Seattle, and then we just move one of those Midwest teams to the East. Like it does work out that way.
So I'm hoping so. We'll end today's segment to remind everybody, starting in the next few weeks, Kenny Cotterill and I are going to take either conference and we're going to go through what if scenarios for the NBA. You might have seen your favorite teams competing at a very high level. Maybe your team won the championship, but would they win if every round they receive the other team's best fit player for their scheme? Kenny Cotterill and I are going to go through each of those series and find out if the team's got the best fit player for their system, would the same winners come out? And we will simulate with our very own It's Rated Merc. Had that video ready and queued up to see if we get the same winners every year, going all the way back to 94, 95. Our series starts after March Madness, so we are gearing up. We're going to start getting our numbers down and getting those rosters created. But stay tuned for What If NBA edition, only on the Into the Lab podcast. That's tonight's episode. Kenny Cotterill, thank you so much for being on tonight's show. Why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can follow me at HedgePod. Got to get back into the podcast on that front. Just been really busy being a full-time worker and then also part-time student on top of that. Have been giving out betting picks. Gave out Syracuse today. We're supposed to give out 2 betting picks tonight. So if you like 2 early ones for tomorrow,
that's right.
Go Western Kentucky money line against Louisiana Tech. And then play Creighton -8.5 against Seton Hall would be 2 early lines that I've seen for college basketball for tomorrow. Western Kentucky at home, they're slight dogs, and then Creighton at home, they're 12-2, and they score the ton of points. So appreciate you having me on. It was a fun show. We'll have to do this more often.
Of course, and if you want to add my forgetful picks in there, UTSA -2 tomorrow against Tulsa. They're playing at home. Winning record, you take that all day. And then last but not least, Frank Labuda will be traveling to College Station to watch the Gamecocks go up against Texas A&M. Texas A&M 5-point favorites. We're actually taking the Gamecocks. +4.5 is what it's at right now. I had it at +5.5 before the show started, so that's trending the right direction, or the wrong direction for most, but gearing towards a win for the Gamecocks. We like that pick. So we're going Gamecocks in that game, but we're going to take the points. So whatever you can get that point spread. That is your 4-game parlay, and I am your host, Ernest Silva. If you're listening, that means you've got this in the morning, and it's a beautiful morning going into the leap year. We got 2 more days left in February, and if you're watching us, thank you so much for watching us and all your support tonight. We hope you guys have a wonderful and beautiful evening. Stay classy, everybody.